The Fallout games have always had things stay constant, such as vets, a story, and of course the Fallout setting. But today I'll be removing one of those, and as read by the title, I won't be using any stamina, which means no vets, no running, and no gun bashing. But before we begin, I just want to tell you to subscribe, because as of right now, none of you are subscribed. So please, why not hit the subscribe button and join me on my future adventures. As I began my journey, I gave my character huge nose and a very muscular body. I then walked around my house for a while. I then talked to the Vault Tech rep, named myself Sheriff McCree because I would be hitting all my shots, put all my points into random categories, had a great time with my family, began to run for my life as the nuke sirens were being blared. I then realized that I couldn't run, so I backtracked towards the house slowly and walked towards the vault. Don't worry, I haven't failed the challenge just yet. I then entered the vault, avoided my responsibilities as a father, see my wife get annihilated, as well as seeing my child being taken away, woke up, took my wife's ring, and it was finally time to begin combat. I smacked some roaches around, got my pit boy, and left the vault. So far, no problem. Grabbed a traffic cone and played around with it, found myself in the ruins of Sanctuary, talked to Codsworth, put my special book into luck because who knows why, did some scavenging, found out that Codsworth had done all the hard work for me. I then left Sanctuary, found a melee weapon which are pretty much useless in this challenge. I then found Dogmeat, who I'll be taking with me for the rest of my journey. I then fought the most disgusting enemies in the game, hit some long shots on some raiders, took their clothes off and put them on me, gave myself some more health. I then hacked into the terminal so I wouldn't have to come back later, killed some enemies using a melee weapon for some reason, got into my power armor, annihilated some guy on the roof, and I began to shred into the raiders. I knew the Deathclaw was coming, so I hid in the store right next to where it spawns, so I wouldn't be hit. I successfully mowed down the Deathclaw, picked up some loot, didn't care what any of the Minutemen had to say, so I left the museum after a couple of lines of dialogue. I then realized that I would be siding with the Minutemen in order to beat the game, so I turned back around to go finish the dialogue. Eventually talked to Preston in Sanctuary, and I finally made my way to Diamond City. But on my way to Diamond City, I encountered a confrontation. I tried using my soft, charismatic voice to soothe them, but failed to do so. So I did the only reasonable thing, which was to end their life. I then did some bartering, spent my points, fought some super mutants outside of Diamond City, met Piper, got into Diamond City, sold some of my items, did an interview for some quick XP. I then decided that I had gone long enough without ending a life, so I took a random civilian's life. I then learned of the Freedom Trail, and finally found myself at Nick's detective agency. Talked to Ellie, tried once again to use my amazing charismatic skills, but failed to do so once again. I was then told to go save Nick Valentine, spent my point on toughness, beat down on some dogs, and finally found myself at the train station. My first approach was to be sneaky for this part, but that didn't go over so well. But in the next section, I was able to get one sneaky kill off. But as for the rest of the section, I went guns blazing. I opened a vault door, mowed some guys down with the submachine gun, tried to be sneaky once again, but that didn't go over so well. So once again, I went guns blazing. I then found Dino, who I thought I could kill from far away, but it didn't work. So I used my abilities to look around corners in third person to my advantage. I then grabbed the speech bobblehead and talked to Nick. Me and Nick then bolted out of the vault, decided to go guns blazing once again, and we eventually made our way to Skinny Malone. I then tried to use my amazing skills in speech once again, but failed once again, and I died on my first attempt. But this time, I had no hesitation to end Skinny Malone right when I saw him. But as I did, nothing happened to him. So instead, I shot Darla, and it worked. But yet again, I was mowed down by bullets. But here comes our first problem, and it's not even stamina related. I noticed that Skinny Malone wasn't taking any damage, so I tried gun bashing him and using bats on him, but none of them worked. But I was just experiencing the Fallout 4 experience. So I let Skinny Malone kill me so I could act like none of that happened. So right when I spawned, I ripped out my minigun and was ready to shred them to bits. But as I mowed them all down, I realized that Skinny Malone was still not taking any damage. So I whipped out my baseball bat and started slapping him around. At first, all it did was stun him, but after a couple of hits, he began to take damage. So after bashing his skull into the floor, we finally left the vault peacefully. But before I would begin my journey once again, I put my skill point into Gunslinger, which would increase my damage with pistols. I then eventually made it back to Nick Valentine's detective industry, did an interview, and eventually made my way over to Kellogg's house. I didn't have the key to Kellogg's house, nor did I have the skills in order to open it, so I made my way over to the mayor's office. Saw Piper, tried to use my amazing charismatic skills once again, failed once again. I then tried to convince the mayor to give me the key, but I then failed once again. Eventually, I just gave up, and I gave the money to Geneva because I didn't have any more time to waste that day. And with that, I eventually opened Kellogg's house, found some stinky cigars, declined Nick's services to help me, and put my point to Scrounger because I still need more ammo. And I finally began my journey to Fort Hagen. On my way there, There, I had some small and big troubles along the way, but I eventually made it to Fort Hagen. But I then realized that I would most likely get annihilated if I went to Fort Hagen, so I decided to go help the Brotherhood of Steel to get some goodies. I then teleported myself to the Cambridge police station, where I fought some ghouls, talked to Dance, finally put my first point into charisma, talked to Dance once again, and our journey began once again. We eventually made our way over to Arc Jet Systems, fought some synths for the first time ever, stood around for a bit, saw Dance be turned into a crisp, and we finally made our way out of Arc Jet. I then received a useless weapon. I then followed the Freedom Trail in order to find Good Neighbor in order to find a very important person. I then walked into Good Neighbor like any other person, did some trading, and I finally found the thing I was looking for, which was the Fat Man. I then took it upstairs and put it in my pocket, along with some mini nukes. I then put another point into charisma, entered the third rail in hopes I would find the man I was looking for, and lucky me, he was here, Edward. He would lead me to the Cabot House where mini nukes could be found, so I made my way over to the Cabot House. On my way to the Cabot House, I saw the real Fallout 4 experience, but I eventually made my way to the Cabot House, where I would take all of his food and nukes, and finally take my leave, just as my father did. I then teleported to Fort Hagen, took a nap, and fought my way through hordes of synths blasting me constantly. Spent my point on Scrounger because I still need even more ammo, found another Fat Man and nuke, and I eventually found myself a door away from Kellogg. After everything I had been through, I was patient no more. I whipped out my huge Fat Man and annihilated Kellogg. Mission accomplished. After ending his lackeys, I used a spoon to scoop out a piece of Kellogg's brain for science. I also had received his gun, which was totally useless for me. I then left Fort Hagen to return to Nick Valentine. After lots of dialogue, I then made my way over to the Freedom Trail in order to find the railroad. After finding them, I immediately left to the memory den, where I would enter Kellogg's memory, and I would also see a bunch of memories that would make a great TV show. After I was done, I then went through some dialogue and left the memory den. I then went back to Sanctuary to upgrade my weapons. I also went back to Concord to get my power armor back. I then fixed it up and began my journey to the Green Sea. But as I reached the Green Sea, I realized my power armor wouldn't be strong enough. So I went back to the Cambridge police station in order to join the Brotherhood of Steel in order to receive the power armor you receive as a knight. So after making my way onto the Pridwin and listening to other Max and talk, I received my power armor and was ready to leave. And I put another point into toughness, and now began the journey to the Green Sea. As I began my journey, I shot in my pants, although I have been down this road so many times. Anyways, there were some small and big problems along the journey, but I eventually found myself at the crater of Adam. They told me where Vigil was, so I started making my way over there. I then successfully avoided the Deathclaw, but realized that I probably wouldn't be able to teleport away when I came out of the cave. So I decided to shoot one of my mini nukes at it, and it somehow survived. But I quickly took action and ended his life. Anyways, I finally made my way into Virgil's cave, where he told me to go find a courser. I eventually found the tower that the courser was hiding in, fought my way up the tower, eventually found the courser, terminated his life, freed the rogue synth because I have some sort of good in me, and I finally left the building. I then spent my point on gun nut in order to further upgrade my weapons. Turns out it was pointless because I didn't have the right materials in order to upgrade my weapons. I then went back to Good Neighbor to talk to Dr. Amari about the courser chip, but she just sent me to the railroad, so I did just that. I then cracked the code with the railroad's help. In this run, I decided to run with the Minutemen, so you already know what that means.
Another summit has sent word that they need our help. Mark the location on your map. Another summit has sent word that they need our help.
Alright, finally. Now that's over. I gave Sturgis the plans for the teleporter. Luckily, I already had everything in the workshop, so no extra work is needed. I was then teleported into the Institute, where I put the transmitter into the computer. I then found Sean. Plot twist, it's not Sean. Then some old guy shows up. I was about to end his life, but where's the fun in that? Turns out this wrinkly old man is my son. Because of that reason, I joined the Institute. I then ran around to talk to every single division leader. Sean then told me to go meet up with the courser. Met up with the courser and started blazing through all the raiders, until some raider blew me up with a Fat Man. So I decided to end Sean because I would rather fight the entire Institute than an NPC with the Fat Man. So I quickly ended Sean and got out of there as fast as I can, in which I was successful. But now I would pay the ultimate price for killing Sean.
Another summit has sent word that they need our help. Mark the location on your map. Another summit has sent word that they need our help.
After all of that, Preston wanted to take back the castle, so why not? As soon as we rushed in, I threw a grenade and accidentally ended one of our Minutemen. After a while, a huge queen came out and I blasted her with an unbelievable amount of missiles, but she eventually fell. Preston then sent me to another settlement who needed my help. I then made some super strong drugs that a human should not use, had a very long and intense battle with a bunch of robots and triggermen. I then finally told the settlers they could live happily ever after, but after I helped this settlement, Preston sent me to yet another settlement, so you know what that means.
Another summit has sent word that they need our help. Mark the location on your map. Another summon is...
Alright, now that that's done, I then returned to the castle and fought Sarge under the castle, and I nearly even died a couple of times, but I eventually defeated the Sarge. I then opened the armory, built some artillery, shot some artillery, and finally talked to Preston yet again. But now began the hardest part of the challenge for me, which was to defend the castle from the Institute. But first, I would put my skill point into strength, most likely because I thought I was going to be using melee weapons, although that wouldn't ever happen. I then touched up my guns and found myself at the castle once again. Although I would set up these turrets, they would ultimately be more useless than Preston Garvey. As I was setting up my useless turrets, we were attacked and I nearly sharded my pants. But now the battle had begun and wouldn't end until... I failed at shooting my fat man right here and killed myself.
Much later.
After the battle had been won, all of my ammo was gone, and it was now time to end the Institute. On my way there, I fought a legendary Mirelurk, which gave me my best item for the run. Thanks Fallout 4, very cool. Anyways, I eventually found the entrance, fought hordes of ghouls, made a bunch of monkeys mad, entered the actual Institute, fought hordes of synths, powered up a sentry bot which would fight the synths, but it backfired and he started attacking us, fought some gorillas, spent my point on chem resistance for some reason, but then my game crashed, so I had to fight the gorillas once again, fought some more synths, saw the Fallout 4 experience once again, decided not to put the evacuation system on, fought a couple more synths, had the craziest fight of my life, and I found the gun that would end this battle once and for all.
Yes!
北斗神拳は2000年の一子相伝。お前ごときが使えるほど甘くはない。真に伝えよ。ユリアは必ず俺が助け出すと。そうすれば貴様の命。
The battle was finally over. I then planted the pulse charge onto the reactor, took Sean with me this run. I was then teleported to the top of Trinity Tower, got out of my power armor. I then approached the detonation button, and I finally ended the Institute. And I successfully beat Fallout 4 without using any stamina. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to support me. Please leave any feedback in the comments down below of any sort. And until next time, my friends, see ya.